Growing up in Botswana, I clearly remember mornings, children taking their grandparents to sit under a mokala tree. What the individual could do the whole day was nothing to improve their quality of life, their wellness, or their well-being. Rather, chase the tree shadows. They will continue to do so until at night when the same grandchildren took them back in. In the day, as the Kalahari sun rose higher and higher and got hotter and hotter, they will shuffle around the tree trunk to avoid baking. Sight loss was not uncommon where I grew up. I myself suffered from short-sightedness in childhood, something I concealed at school, wary to be told to man up. I could not clearly see the chalkboard, for an example. I therefore sat at the front of the class, something very challenging as boys were religiously expected to sit at the back. I therefore came with the mountains of reasons why it was cool to sit at the front than at the back. Lord behold, my concoction worked. Nobody knew. I first had my pair of glasses in my 20s, long after I've left my primary and secondary school. For the first time, I could clearly see faces across the street. Again, for the first time, I could clearly see cars hurtling towards me. More so electric cars now. In my 30s, while in the United Kingdom, I was finally diagnosed with a retinal disease that caused my short-sightedness. To say I was blinded by the diagnosis is an understatement, for I will never forget that day leaving the hospital with blurred vision and clutching a fistful of eye drops that I had to take militarily. To put things into context about sight loss, there are currently 7 billion people in the world. 2.2 billion of them have a vision impairment, and 1.1 billion are living with a sight loss that's preventable or treatable, simply because there are no health facilities. And this number is expected to rise to 1.7 billion by 2050 if nothing is done. Yes, 90% of sight loss in the world is caused by preventable or treatable vision impairment. Economically, sight loss cost the world 10.7 billion in lost productivity. That's done with mathematics now. Today, I work as a habilitation and rehabilitation specialist. Habilitation is teaching children and young people skills for the first time. These are blind and vision impaired children and young people. Rehabilitation is the retraining of adults after acquired sight loss. It is my ongoing passion to see the vision impaired achieve their potential through this training. Without these trainings, children and young people will struggle with social and interpersonal developmental skills, let alone their education attainment. There is a world consensus that education is a social mobility. There is, as well as human rights. There is preschool, primary school, and secondary school, and so forth. This is not by chance or by default. It's an affirmation of the importance of education in the development of an individual as they grow up. If only the same could be said about the vision impaired, they too will not be left behind per Sustainable Development Goals. Helen Keller who lost her sight and hearing at the age of 2, once said, the worst thing than being blind is having sight but no vision. What did she mean in today's world? What she meant is this continuous lack of training for the blind and vision impaired at the earliest. Even thinking back to those grandparents chasing magala trees, shadows, they too perhaps could have been trained on orientation and mobility, for example. Orientation is where am I and the spaces around me. Mobility is how do I walk from here to where I want to be going independently and safely. There was this gentleman, let's call him Matieng, who was totally dependent on his wife to do anything and everything for him. If the wife was out with friends and family, hoping to spend quality time with them, she will come home running at Formula 1 speed to assist the dependent husband. After I successfully taught Matieng long white cane skills, the white cane that you have seen, route training, and the use of public transport, he independently went to town and back without his wife on tour. He was so happy that day that he wrote to my then manager to thank me for enabling him the skills of independence. I should presume the wife was even more happier. Matieng went on to join a local vision impaired society where he became an ardent advocate for early habilitation and rehabilitation intervention. If the vision impaired can be taught the skills, then no one is going to be left chasing shadows. Thank you.